Hello, everyone. You have to love technology. You have no other choice. It is our gracious overlord, and it is here to stay, whether we want it to or not. Good evening, everyone. John Maddox, Tigers tonight, week 2 as part of the Bluff City media team. We are so proud to be there and be part of a team that is going to. You'll have to forgive me. Internet issues. It looks like here tonight on my end. Hopefully, the voice at least stays good. I'm John Maddox, joined as always by the best co-host in all the land. First, the one I'm going to blame for all this, since he actually enjoys the snow that he has right now. We'll go to our northern branch, the one and only Brian Moss. Brian, how are you, sir?
Doing pretty good. I got about 6 inches last night. That's what she said. So, yeah, doing pretty good. I love it up here.
You can have all that. And, this has got to be some kind of record, Larry. Like, this is 2 weeks in a row, and you are in the palatial Marley Manor here in Hernando. How are you, sir?
And here's the crazy thing. So this is the first week since the new year that I'm not traveling overnight anywhere. So it's just a great week for me. A great week for now. The family is ready for me to leave, of course, but that's normal. No, it's funny because for me, March is always represents the start of spring practice because that's when you start getting ramped up. Spring practice normally will start either right before or right after spring break. And so when March hits, which is tomorrow, that's when your mind starts going, okay, here comes spring practice. We've got to get our body right. You're starting to so the off season has effectively ended, and now you're getting into the spring practice season.
Yeah, somebody the other day, we were on Twitter having a back and forth about college basketball, and Jim Weber, that's who it is. He's done a lot of stuff on Twitter, and he's created a lot of great content. And he made the comment. He said, is a thing where people like don't realize basketball exists until mid-February. And I was like, pretty much basketball for most of us in the South is a placeholder from January to the first weekend of March Madness, and then we're back into football mode. I don't think I'm wrong with that, am I? I think that's kind of a general consensus, right, guys? That even though you have good basketball down here in the South, obviously Memphis being one of those schools, it still feels sometimes like a placeholder, especially at SEC schools, even when they're good. I don't think the quality of their team matters that much. It just really feels like a placeholder.
I think that in general, you mentioned the SEC, and that's a great because it's not just the SEC. I think you get that in most of the Pac-12, for example, and the Mountain West and the AAC as well. Any conference, not the ACC or the Big Ten, is basically. It is a placeholder, guys. And when I say placeholder, I mean there are schools that are the exceptions within like Kentucky, for example, and the SEC would be the exception to that rule. But in general, you're exactly right, John, that for in the South, even in the non-power schools, as a lot of people know, my daughter goes to Southern Miss, and they were picked 14th in the Sun Belt. Now they ended up winning the Sun Belt, which is amazing. But my point in that is that for Southern Miss has a history of basketball, but it's not strong, right? And I think in general, most schools in the South are the same way.
Oh, and speaking of Southern Miss, before we get into it, congratulations, Joy Lee McNellis, former Memphis women's coach, winning the conference championship as well, I believe, in women's basketball down there. And guys, not that we are prescient or that we know things before things happen, but the three of us had Katrina Merriweather on last year, right after she got hired for our one of our YI coach things. And the three of us, I think, we interviewed, I don't remember if you were there, Larry, but Brian and I were on Media Day last year with women's basketball, or I guess it was like 2 years. Anyway, it's all been a blur since like March of 2020 for some strange reason. And we were all on there with her, and there's no way that we're finishing last in the league. Like,
right.
There's no way that's happening. And then I think, Brian, we've all talked about like I think we were picked to finish 8th or 9th this year, and I was like, nope, we're going to be way better.
Yeah.
And the women are in second place, and she's just awesome. Everything about her vibe is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell when talking to her. I mean, she knows her stuff. Just a determined coach that you would really run through a brick wall for. I mean, I love talking to her during that. Why I coach her. That was a fantastic interview. Got to see her personality. Really a sense of why she does what she does, and I mean, it's phenomenal. I'm kudos to her. I'm glad she's got that program turned around, and they could make a run. I mean, I'm telling you, I don't. This may be before my time. Has Memphis women's ever been to the NCAA tournament? I
Oh
don't
yeah,
think so, right?
yeah.
Oh, they have?
Oh
All
yeah,
right.
yeah.
But it's been a while, obviously.
It's
Oh,
been a
yeah.
while, but yes, it has happened.
It was was it the mid to late 90s? I think under was it Joy Lee that was like 94, 95 through there, a little.
And then
some
they
stretch
made
through there. I'm
they
sure
made a
somebody will-
huge run in the women's NIT back in after that, like 99 or so. So I mean and that's not the NCAA tournament, I understand, but I mean that's my point is they've had really good teams. What was was it Joy Lee that went to Southern Miss? So I guess it was Joy Lee, whose team had that big run. I think they even made it to the second weekend. I could be
Yeah.
wrong.
So yeah, I'm looking it up now, and I had the timing right. 94 made it the second round. The next 3 years made it to the first round. Then 3 straight women's NIT journeys, including a semifinal appearance in 98, 99, and then a women's NIT in 2003, 2004. And then we had under Melissa McFerrin, 4 of her first 5 years, we made postseason play, something called the WBI. I don't honestly remember that. And then a couple runs in the women's NIT, and then she got back to the women's NIT again in 2015. And then the program just cratered. I mean, it went through.
Yeah, I mean, I actually met her a couple of times. And Melissa was one of those people that, and for those who don't know, Melissa came from the WNBA she had been a coach in the WNBA. That's not where she came directly, but she had been a coach in the WNBA and came to Memphis. And I think, so, you guys know how some people have that personality that they're just so driven but it's not that it's short term. Like they can get players' attention for a while, but then over the long term, they just sort of people start to tune them out. I think that's what happened to Melissa. Don't you guys think? I mean, that's just sort of my take on. But I know we're not here to talk about women's basketball, but that's just my take on it.
Yeah, I wanted to shout out Katrina Merriweather and the women's basketball team for really, really exceeding expectations. So tonight we wanted to kind of get into, I think we'll start with the easier one first. Last week we talked about the offense, and we're talking post signing day, post transfer portal ish, although that's going to come up here in a minute on the defensive side of the ball. Are these teams, are the portions of Memphis's team better, worse, the same, or are we in wait and see mode with this team after all is said and done? So we'll start with special teams. And this is a special teams unit that is replacing both kickers. They're replacing their punter and their kicker. I'm going to assume, they're going to have to replace kick returner too, I think, because Eddie Lewis was the primary punt returner. He's not going to.
Yeah, I mean, I think pretty much your entire special teams, short of the long snapper.
Your coach, you're overhauling everything.
Yeah, I mean,
You're overhauling the whole.
And look, Brian did a great article on this. And when you look at the numbers, they need. I mean, at least on the return and the coverage, they needed a complete overhaul. So, and I know that we're talking about kickers here, but one of the problems that I had with the kicking last year was the penalties where we kicked the ball out of freaking bounds, out of a touchdown. How many times did it happen, guys? I mean,
4.
I can count Okay, there you go, John.
Yeah,
I knew
it
it
was
was 3
4.
or 4. It was a bunch, and it was frustrating because you got momentum and you kick the ball out of bounds, and that just automatically flips the field immediately, and you're just like, "Come on, can we please?" So yeah, that's something that we needed to overhaul.
And Brian, did we talk? I know I mentioned it last week, but I wanted to kind of get your input on this. Is there a position that is going to benefit more from transfer portal, the openness of it, and not only transfer portal, but the signing day and just all the things around that? I don't know that there is a position more than kicker/punter that is going to benefit from this more, because like you see in the NFL, you're like, how did that dude kick for 22 years in the NFL? Well, he has one job. And if you're a kicker, you have one job, and that commodity. If you're a kicker like the Alex Rayner kid from Georgia Southern, who is, he's going to take a step up in competition and move up to the AAC this year.
Yeah, the reason why I think kicker will benefit the most from the transfer portal is because when you have schools, they generally, when you get a kicker out of high school, I mean, it's like a roll of a dice, really. I mean, Memphis has found out a couple times that you have ones that will knock it out of the park, Riley Patterson, Jake Elliott, and then some that David Kemp maybe got injured. It's an unknown. You just don't know very much about them. But when you have a kicker that's been through college, like the Rayner kid that's coming in Georgia Southern, he has college experience, so he's been through it. Been through some pressure situations, maybe not as much as some other ones, but still, when you have someone, Alex Rayner, I mean, like I said, pressure situations may not be great in where he came from, but it's a more pressure situation than in high school. Bigger environment, has already been through college classes and things like that. So to me, for coaching staff, when you're looking at kickers, it's easier to evaluate college kickers maybe in a upper level, lower level, but they have something on film college wise. So that's why I think going forward, I think you'll see less and less high school kickers going to bigger programs, and then you'll have they'll just funnel that through the transfer portal. I mean, I really do think that.
Yeah, I mean, because if you're Alabama, and I'm just going to pick on them because Jeb said something that I totally agree. I mean, agree. Don't, never mind. I, I think if you're Alabama, you're not going to take a scholarship flyer on a kicker when you could get a third quarterback or a backup running back or whatever, and you can just get some. Because was it Mississippi last year or LSU last year that literally recruited a dude off campus? Like, he showed up for an open tryout and made the team and ended up kicking off for the team. Like, if you're one of these P5 schools, you're not going to waste a scholarship. Not that kickers are a waste of scholarship. I think at least two of the three of us would agree on that sentiment on this podcast here tonight. One's probably a dissenter.
No, a good kicker is worth the scholarship, but come on now.
They're well, and Memphis,
both of them are great.
All kidding aside, Memphis really learned that lesson over the last 2 years with having the issues 2 years ago with David Kemp and the kickoffs out. It's like Chris Howard fundamentally changed the Memphis offense this year. So this is one for me that I don't think. I think Memphis is better, even though we don't have any of the same people we have. Like, to me, I think, Brian, your point's a good one. Like, experience is probably not as relevant with kicking the football, being a kicker or a punter. Now, I will tell you that a good punt return, kick return guy is critical. Like, that's a must-have. But you can make it with a kicker that you see it in the NFL. I mean, how many times do you see that in the NFL where, a guy goes out and botches 3 field goals, and the next week they go, Larry, you're in. And Larry's been selling carpet for the last year and a half, and he gets picked up by an NFL team and he comes in and he kicks. So you can kind of work a kicker into the rotation when you can't do that with other positions. So I think we'll all agree that Memphis is probably better. This Brian, the classic addition by subtraction this year with Memphis special teams?
Yeah, I think so. You have there were just so many problems, and when you clean house the way Silverfield has, I mean, you can't help but to be hopeful. You have someone coming in with some experience. Yeah, I don't see how you can get any worse. I mean, I really don't.
Yeah,
And it's hard to think that.
I
You can hear
usually
what
say don't say
Rodimus
that,
Smith did,
but
folks, like I've seen that. I mean, but I mean, look, and I don't mean to cut you off, John. It's like I think we have to be careful when we say they've got to be better, because I think overall the special teams will be better, but I think replacing Chris Howard is going to be really, really hard, because we've been kicker U for a while, right, with Jake, and then and we've been really lucky in the last I guess going all the way back to 2003, right?
I mean, I was going to say we weren't great for a couple years, but as part of it, were we spoiled because of how good we had been, like
Correct.
at kicking the football?
I think that's
and not just
that's probably true.
But not just kicking, right? Or returning. I mean, we had Tony Pollard, we had Tony Gibson. Like, we had guys that could change a game back there. D'Angelo, his freshman year, he returned punts and kicks. Like, you had game changers, and we just haven't had that. Although Eddie Lewis really grew into that role kind of as the season went along. But, I think this is one where Memphis will be better, because they will be better, I feel like, at little things. And all we need Alex Rayner to do and the new punter to do are be competent. Like, you don't need them to come in. You don't need the kicker to come in and try to be Steven Gostkowski. Just be Alex Rayner. I'm sorry, the punter's name escapes me, and transfer from Arkansas, I believe. You don't need him to come in and be anything other. He doesn't need to be Tom Hornsey or Joe Doyle. He just needs to be who he is and be competent.
Reed Bauer.
Yeah, Reed Bauer. That's it. Arkansas. I think I had that part right. Just need him to be competent, and we need better coaching, and we need let's see, it's February the 28th. I can't believe we've made it this long of the year into the new year. We just need to make sure we're paying attention to the little things and having attention to detail in the kicking game, not kicking the ball out of bounds, not getting silly penalties, not being crazy and going for it in spots when you don't need to. Just be competent, and don't. Special teams is definitely one of those things that special teams can cost you a game. As Jeb said, you see what a bad kicking game can do, because it changes everything, right? It changes. Now I'm 4th and 6 from the 34 with 3.5 to go, and I'm up 7. Well, if I don't feel like I have a competent kicker, I'm going to keep the offense out there, because my odds of him missing that 41-yard field goal, and then I put the other team on the 35, I have to play those odds, right? Like, at least get 3 or 4 yards. And that, those are the little things that show up in the middle of games, middle of the fourth quarter, that don't necessarily show up in a box score per se. All right, so let's move now. As I can't believe we spent like 18 minutes on kicking. That's got to be some sort of record for Tigers tonight. And for those that tune in expecting something else, we deeply apologize and hope that we haven't caused too much inconvenience there. But let's move over to the defensive side of the ball. So, Larry, I'll just start with you. We'll get into specifics momentarily. Is Memphis better, worse, the same, or we'll see? And we're doing overall defense, and then we'll come back and kind of go unit by unit.
It's a we'll see. And I'll expound on that in a second.
Brian?
I agree. It's a we'll see, because of certain positions of who left. AKA to me, Quindell Johnson. That's the one. That's why I say we'll see. I think it's better in some areas, worse in some, but overall, it's a we'll see.
Well, I know this is going to come as a shock to everyone. But I got bad news for everybody. I think Memphis is going to be better this year, and because I think that 2 of the 3 units are going to be better. My whole concern is the unit that I think will be worse. It's probably not great that the unit that I'm picking to be worse than it has been the last 2 years is going to be bad in such a pass-heavy league. So that gives it away. So we'll just start there. Let's start kind of at the edges and work our way in. The secondary to me is just, it got obliterated this year with graduations and Ladarius Polk, who wasn't even on the spring roster. So it really wasn't a surprise when he announced he was entering the transfer portal, although he technically can't go in until it was like May 10th, May 5th,
Right,
sometime in May.
It's after spring, right?
It's after spring practice and after the spring game, which I believe is either the 14th or 21st of September. I'm still trying to firm that up. Memphis is going to struggle from a depth perspective in the secondary, and that, again, that worries me in a league that's going to throw the ball a lot. And in a league where we say they're going to throw the ball, you don't know what you're going to see 6, 7 times. You haven't seen it before. So, it's one thing, Larry, you talk about this all the time. It's one thing to watch something on tape. Like, it's one thing to watch the option on tape that Navy runs. It's a whole damn different ball of wax when that light comes on September the 14th on Thursday night at Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium, and you're getting cut and getting blocked. But I think the secondary is I don't know how you could look at this and go, oh, they'll be okay.
Well, and if you look at the losses now, let's talk about the additions first, because we added Johnson from Ohio State, Blair from Arkansas, and Malik Feaster from FSU, Forest State. So we had some additions, and you look at those schools that they were at, and you go, oh, they were, look, as we've talked about it before, schools like that don't recruit kids that can't play. All right, it's just a fact. You're not going to be on the Florida State roster if you can't play football. So we think that those guys will be able to fill roles for us. And we've added, some other kids are coming up. They're going to be seniors this year. But the simple truth is, John, you nailed it when you said it's not, I don't think the top, the first overall unit is going to be worse. It's the depth. We don't have that 5, 6, 7 guys that can come in, because when you play in a pass heavy league, you're playing dime a lot, nickel a lot. And so you're playing 5 and 6 DBs on a play. So it's not like the old days where you have 2 corners, 2 safeties, and a monster, right? It's not like that anymore. You've got 5 and 6 DBs out there, and they're getting what? 40, 50, 60, 70 snaps a game. And so you're right, John. That's my concern, is over the course of 12 games, how is that unit going to hold up? And that is my main concern. When I said, because the defensive line, yeah, we lost a lot on the DL. We're going to get there. I know we lost a lot on the linebackers, but we had a lot coming in. But the DBs, that's the back end of that defense is a struggle.
Yeah, you're replacing both safeties. Yeah, you're replacing both safeties. I mean, because when you look at the depth chart, Quindell Johnson, the leadership, I think, is going to be missed more than anything from him. I mean, his production was, outstanding.
He's back there calling the plays, Brian. I mean, he's the one back there calling the plays.
Yeah,
right? I mean, don't look. I will tell you this. After I left my senior year, we lost both of our play callers because I graduated, Murray Strain graduated. And the next year, like the first half of the year, like you could tell, like it was a struggle for them because they were used to somebody else calling the plays and not somebody else's voice. I'm telling you, that you hit on a huge point there.
Yeah, Polk, obviously announced that he's transferring. He was your starting, the other safety that was starting. But your quarterbacks are back. Greg Rubin, he's back. Davion Ross, he started games. He's back. But what you have coming in, I'm really excited about Simeon Blair, and I believe he was a safety, if I'm not mistaken. I forgot to check. So he's going to take one of your safety spots. So I mean the ones that are coming in, I mean that's why I think the potential is there to be better than you was last year, even though uh, Johnson's a huge loss, but the other safeties, I think Blair is right there because he was very, in my opinion, he was very productive for Arkansas. I mean, if you're productive at the SEC level, I mean, you should be that much more so, in the American. You
It's
would think.
it to me though, guys. It's one of those situations where we talked about you can just kind of insert kicker here, but when you're going to be playing a lot of nickel, a lot of dime, uh, what that basically means is guys have to communicate. They have to have a chemistry. They have to have a camaraderie. And we talked about this last week with the quarterback and the receivers. Like that's why chemistry is so, and it's important on the defensive side of the ball too, just like it is on offense, in that you have to have guys that know, like, and trust each other. And it's little things like I have to trust that Quindell's not going to overplay. And so I get out of position trying to help. I have to trust that Quindell can do his job, or I have to trust that Greg Rubin is doing his job to where I don't lose focus and try to help and then come back over here. And now my guy's 10 yards behind me because I kind of got out of position there. And Davion Ross he's going to be a good player, and he's one that's going to help us in the kick return game. Ward just brought that up. That's an excellent point. But you got to have lots of guys. That's the thing. Like, it's not just, I think Larry said, it's not just 4 or 5 guys. Like, I looked at Charlotte's roster. I think they carry 9 defensive backs, maybe 10. Like, they carry a lot because everybody throws the dang ball. So, that's going to be my challenge. Moving into linebacker, and these
Well,
next
before
two,
before you go into
go ahead.
linebacker, a kid that I think has a chance to be maybe not a day one starter, but contribute greatly like Greg Rubin did coming in as a freshman is the Moss kid. Yeah, I love that last name. Where was he from? Shreveport, Louisiana. Marjavius Moss. He was a 4-star. I think he was on 24/7. I think he was a 4-star there. Rivals had him as a 3-star. But I know the staff's very high in this kid. He had legit Power 5 offers and chose Memphis. I'd say watch him in the fall to see if he gets some playing time because he's good enough to where he may start some games for Memphis this year.
He may have to. All right, so let's move ahead now in the defensive alignment. Let's move to linebackers. This is a we'll see, Brian, but I am cautiously optimistic about the linebacker group coming back.
Yeah, what excites me is the kid from ETSU, Chandler Martin. I mean, kid was a beast. Was he player of the year or something to the all conference or something
Yeah, I
like
think he
that?
was the SoCon. That's where they are. They're in the Southern Conference. I think he was the SoCon freshman of the year or player of the year. I don't remember.
I mean, he flies to the ball. I know Memphis lost a lot, but Memphis has a lot coming back. At linebacker. So when you take a look at it, I mean, Andrew Jones is a kid that he was a redshirt freshman last year. I really think this year is a chance for him to step up. I mean, you still got Canton Arku that's coming back. Davion Mayo, had some playing time, but the loss of Collins is huge. I mean, that's just like losing Johnson in the safety. Losing Collins is huge, but you have to be excited because there's a lot of talent at the linebacker position, and I mean, a lot of these kids could probably start somewhere else, but they're biding their time here at Memphis. And next year or this year, this upcoming year, I'm really excited, especially that Jones. I'm really interested in see how he progresses.
You're not gonna replace Zay Collins with one guy,
No,
right? And that's, but unlike DB, okay, we have a lot of depth here and a lot of experienced guys that have played. Safety, I say DB. You're exactly right, Brian. Unlike safety, which is a huge position in a pass heavy conference. Here we have a lot of experienced guys that have got a lot of snaps under their belt, and I'm with John here. I'm very optimistic that overall this linebacker core is actually going to produce more than it did last year. I think if you look at now, it's got to mesh. And they've got to you're bringing in some outside guys, but yeah, I I thought if you look at the way Cantu, Canton Arku, excuse me, um, developed over the year. I mean, he to start the year, he was a little, but by the end of the year, by the bowl game, guys, he was stuffing people, and I'm talking about stuffing them. He was
Every
a
game
run.
he got better. Yep.
Yes, he got better every game. By the end of the year, I mean, we talked at the end of the year. He actually was one of the people we talked about as opposed to Johnson. I think somebody even said, I don't know if it was John or me, even said, look, if it's not that, it's probably Ken Arku, right? I mean, somebody said that. I know that. So, yeah, I think if you look at the linebacker core this year going in, yeah, they've got more depth, and I think they've got more experience. I'm really excited about how this team plays overall. That staff right there, or that grouping plays over the course of the year, guys. I really do. I think they're going to be just as good, if not better.
And the freshman that's coming in, Carmelo Overton, he was a 4-star in Rivals, right before he committed to Memphis, and then spontaneously went down to a 3-star after committing. But this kid, he's another kid that adds to the depth, and he may see some playing time early. I mean, great body of work, had plenty of offers. So watch for him in the fall camp as well.
So we move to the unit that I think where my idea of a unit that's going to be better is going to just overwhelm our deficiencies. Guys, this defensive line, this group has the potential to be probably our best defensive line in quite some time. And, I'm even going to lump, even though I guess his lineman, I tend to put a guy like Jalen Allen as more of a linebacker. He's just more of that body type. But guys, Hamilton, Jalen Allen, like Jalen Jordan, Joyner, AJ Eldon, like this line is going to be loaded. And I think with the defensive line, the thing is going to be how many of these guys, Brian, can we get enough snaps to keep them happy? Because this I think has the potential to be our most talented defensive line in quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, Cromartie Hamilton, I'm really excited to see what he can do next year. Kimbrough was the backup of Cameron Jackson, who went to Florida. I mean, this line, you got Brockington that showed some glimpses of what he can do last year. This line, Jalen Joyner from Florida Atlantic coming in, he's 6'3", 265. I'm really excited because I really do think that second year under Matt Barnes, it should take off. I mean, Memphis, the total defense went from 95th to 51 in 1 year under Matt Barnes. You're bringing in some playmakers with this defensive line. I'm just saying, watch out. I'm very, very excited about this defensive line with what they can do.
This is arguably our deepest group in terms of talent and
I don't think you can argue. I think on the whole team, this is the deepest groups in terms of talent and athleticism.
And if you and I think you brought up a good point with Allen. He actually is sort of a combo of that, which I actually was going to mention him under the linebackers because he lined up standing up a lot last year. And that's one of the Matt Barnes that likes. He likes doing that. That's sort of I don't want to compare him to this, but the Luke Fickell sort of, has those kind of guys too. And for those who don't know, Barnes came from came from Ohio State as well. And so did Luke Fickell. So they have, you look at their groupings and it's very similar in terms of how they like to group players. And it's good. This group should, in the revamped AAC, they should. Now we talk about pass heavy, but we should be able to shut down running teams. And if you go back to the Navy game last year, we absolutely dominated that line of scrimmage, which is not something we've done in the past, right? And the Utah State game, we dominated the line of scrimmage. We really didn't get run on that much last year, other than Mississippi State, right? I mean, the first game of the year. I mean, nobody just lined up and ran right down our throats that I can.
And the size that Memphis is going to have, Hamilton was 6'3", 265. Derek Hunter Jr. 6'5", 265. Joyner 6'3", 262. I mean, Memphis is going to have a very good sized defensive line. Josh White 6'4", and Darius Jones is 6'4". I mean, this is going to be a legit one of the best defensive lines in the American.
I think what we're all saying here, guys, is we're going to look like a football team when we get off the bus. And
yes,
back in our leaner days, that's why I love fans that, complain about how bad we've been. I'm like, you have no idea. We had a lot of bus losses back in before this current run, and what I mean by a bus loss is you were beat when other team got off the bus because we didn't look like a football team. We're going to look like a football team this year. We're going to look like a mean, angry, hungry football team this year. And, I think that this defensive line early in the season, when you're going to have some offensive issues throwing the ball, because I don't care what people say, it's going to take some time for Seth and the receivers to adjust and kind of get on that same page. That's just going to take some time. And this defensive line, the last couple of years hasn't been able to really get the quarterback on the ground or get after the quarterback that much. So now this year, they're going to have to get after the quarterback, and they're going to have to do that early. And I think this is a very talented team that can do that. Before we get out of here, I do want to talk, Larry had brought up a great point. This is year 2 of Matt Barnes. And I know it takes a full recruiting cycle because we had this whole discussion with Ryan, but this will be a Matt Barnes defense. This will be, there's a lot of new blood coming in. There's a lot of new guys. He's had time now to get a scheme in place, because even he'll admit last year he was very vanilla earlier in the year, because, it's just, even though they say, oh, well, the schemes, no two schemes are the same, because you'd be easy to defend if you left one school and went to another and the scheme was exactly the same, or, vice versa. So no two teams are the same, but I think this will be the year now that the kids that are still here are going to be familiar with the terminology. The new kids that are coming in, they're going to have that terminology down. That so maybe some bad old habits are broken from last year. We started to really see that as the season wore on, especially in the bowl game. That was a game I was worried about because I didn't know what Utah State had, but we just lined up and frankly kicked their ass on both sides of the football, and that was encouraging, and that helps to go into the offseason. So year 2 of Matt Barnes, and I think it's not to beat this dead horse to death, but this is the critical year, right, Brian? I mean, this is make or break, and not just for Ryan Silverfield, it's for all these other coaches. Matt Barnes and Tom Cramsey and Chris White and all the guys that apparently believe in Ryan Silverfield. So now, as they say, the proof is going to be in the pudding. So what are you looking for out of year 2 from Matt Barnes?
Me, just more physicality. I think, at times I want to see more aggressiveness. I think at times last year, there was some spots where I'm like, you had a chance to be more aggressive than they were. Maybe because of personnel, he wasn't as aggressive as he wanted to. So I think this year, more physical, get to the quarterback, with that defensive line, you'll have that opportunity. But just be more physical, because when you take a look at the schedule, the schedule lines up nice. I mean, you got a warm-up game against Bethune-Cookman, challenging game against Arkansas State at their place, come home and you're against Navy. Then you have your first real test, against Missouri, in Missouri. So, and then you also have Boise State. So it progressively gets harder. And to me, I mean, it sets up nice to get, a warm up, get everything going, get your kinks out of the way. To me, I love this schedule and this defense for what it can do, because I think it sets up great for the rest of the year.
If you look at this from a from a coaching standpoint. He comes in last year. He's basically switching over from a 3-4 to a 4-3. He can say whatever he wants, but he made that change. I mean, they played a 3-3 some with the Monster, but basically they played a 4-3. Okay, and so that changes all the assignments. That changes. We had Gabe on last year, and he talked about how when they changed over to the offense, to Norvell's offense, and like something basic as the blocking call was different. Well, something as basic as, hey, what's the lineup? Which gap are you lining up in? That call is different, right? I mean, you may call it something different. And when you're making those changeovers, it does take time. And the timing of the blitzes that we had got better and better and better as the year went on. And in the SMU game, which we should have won, our defensive blitzes were great the whole game. We should have won that game. Not going to go there again. But my point is that defensively this year, we shouldn't be having any problems with blitz calls. We shouldn't have gap call problems. They know their roles and they know where they're going. And so you're a year in, and all the terminology, there's not going to be any problems there with the guys. They have to know what it is by this point. And so to your point, John, what we should see, we went from 90 something to 51. Is that right, Brian?
In total, right? Yeah, in total defense. Yep. And here's the only really area that you need to improve is pass defense, because in rush defense, Memphis was 28th, in the country last year. But pass defense, 89th.
So what you'd like to see is improvement on both those fronts again. Run defense get better. I didn't have a whole lot better, but get better, and the pass defense get better. So you go from 50th to 30th. You know what I mean? In the country, because that's what you want to see. As the defense, but huge jump by the defense this past year, and I expect nothing. We will be as good, if not better. But like I said earlier, it's a wait and see, because we're assuming that these guys
and my
back in
thing
can fill the
with this too, guys, is if you're going to call games offensively the way it appears Memphis wants to call games offensively, we'll debate that as we get closer to the season.
Right.
Your defense has to be able to hold up to that. And because you're not going to go out and score, that's why I think people were expecting Memphis to score 60 points and 55 points. And that's just not how this team is built. That's not how this team is built. This team is built to keep it in the 30s. An occasional maybe a 40, or things like that Arkansas State game a couple years ago, it gets out of hand. You'll have those games, but this is a team they're built different, as the kids say, and they're built to kind of keep it, keep scoring reasonable. Have to be, you do have to score points. This is not 1997, right, guys? Like, you have to score, but you should have a good enough defense at Memphis, especially comparatively speaking, to beat teams 35-24, right? Like, I don't think that is some sort of giant leap for a team to make, to go, okay, well, now we can't win games 48-44. We've got to win games 35-24. When you've improved the coaching on the defensive side, you've improved the athletes on the defensive side, you've built depth defensively, you've gone away from the ridiculous 3-4, which just doesn't work in this league. You're back to a 4-3, a multiple front. A couple times last year, no down, no guys with their hands down. Like, you've gotten away from that whole NFL mentality back to college football, which is where you need to be. And so I just don't think it's that much to ask, hey, Matt, can your guys keep this thing in the mid to upper 20s? Like, I just don't think that's too much to ask, because it is basically Golden State basketball on the football field, right? Like, and this league is no different. It is offensively driven. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. And I think the Memphis defense, look, I'm on the record and I'm going to keep saying it. I think Memphis wins 11 games next year. And I think part of that is there are two big parts of that. Number one, the schedule stinks. And number two, the team's going to be better, right? Like, especially on the defense, they're going to be better. And Memphis is not going to have to do as much offensively to be better. That's I don't know. That's just how I feel. I do want to remind everybody that one of the reasons that we made this jump over to Bluff City Media was the Bluff City NIL relationship, and that Bluff City NIL is an official partner of Coaching for Literacy, and they're a nonprofit organization that uses the power of sports to impact childhood literacy. Lots of studies show that that's one of the big downers in society today is kids just can't read as well. I was blessed. I don't know about you guys. I learned to read when I was 4. I learned from the comic books, or no, the Sunday comic strips. That's how I learned to read, comic strips and TV guides. But every kid today isn't that fortunate. And there's I don't want to get into all the socioeconomic stuff, but coachingforliteracy.org, they do great work over there. You can follow them at Coaching for Literacy. And when you subscribe and join up, your Bluff City NIL donation is 100% tax deductible because of their partnership with Coaching for Literacy. Also, that brings me around to Bluff City Insiders. This is just one thing that we do starting tomorrow. I'm so excited. The folks at Grizzly Bear Blues are coming on board. SB Nation's and Vox's loss is certainly Bluff City Media's gain. Those go, man. If you follow the Grizzlies, you know who Joe Molinax and Parker and Sean Coleman, all those guys are. That they're crazy. Their staff cranks out 6 podcasts a week, and they are just all over the Grizzlies. They're on board tomorrow. Lawrence Dockery is bringing 901 FC. Brian, a big soccer guy there. I know you're happy about getting more soccer coverage here in Memphis. I'm going to be jumping on. I think me and a couple of the other guys are going to hit the showboats this year. So this is a great time to get in with something on the ground floor. BluffCityMedia.co/join, and you can use Tigers Tonight and get 10% off your annual membership. So a lot of big things happening, a lot of great things coming. We've got even more announcements on the Tigers front. You've got Gabe Kuhn's show. You've got Tigers Untapped. Will Coleman has a show that's fantastically entertaining. If you guys don't know that dude.
And look, if you don't know who Will Coleman is, he was a great basketball player. The first, I think, right after John left, Will came in, and just a tremendous athlete, great basketball player. And you would think, and by the way, he used to work. I know he used to work at for the donut place, Gibson's. He used to work at Gibson's because I saw him there, and he. So you would think, well, what has he got to talk about? I will simply tell you, it is fall on the floor funny. If you haven't listened to this guy, he just he comes from out of nowhere, and he's got some great basketball inside stuff, but then he'll just start talking about tamales.
I'm not going to tell on the guy, but I haven't laughed so hard as I laughed in our Slack about the Will Friend situation.
Yes.
That is as hard as I've laughed in probably 2 years. We're not going to get into it here, but it's one of the funniest conversations I've ever been a part of. But I will say, just overall, with all apologies to former Memphis basketball coach Joe Esposito, we are building a monster at Bluff City Media. And how these people retain these things is crazy. But now's the time to get on board with us. We've got a lot of great stuff coming down the pike. I've got some great stuff coming this summer. We're going to get the Why I Coach stuff up and running this summer. I'm going to have some Football 101. We've got so much great stuff to get to this summer. And then, boy, once August hits, it's all hands on deck, balls to the wall, because we're going to blow it out this year. And we're just so excited about what Mark and Kenny and those guys and Zach are helping us build. And, we couldn't do it without them, and Michael, and just such a great team. So just, this is a shot. Get on board. It's $80 a year. You basically you'll get insider articles. You'll get the podcast and things will probably they'll always be free, but we're going to add insider only podcasts. We did that a little bit at Rivals, where we kind of pull back the curtain a little bit and give you some true inside information that we get that doesn't, just go out in the public, or it's a lot of times we know before it gets to the public. So you get kind of first knowledge of that. It's $80 a year. You get that. You're going to get some live meet and greet events. No worries. You're not paying to meet me. That's
anybody wants to meet me.
Yeah.
But now I'll take drinks. Okay.
You if you want to meet Larry and I, you got to get out more. That's just what I'll say. But no, a lot of great stuff coming with that. We're going to have insider stuff. If you're not hip to Discord and what that is, If you join, you get access to our Insiders Discord. We have all these different channels where all of our folks interact during the events, during games, during just about, everything sports. We had yesterday, I logged on the Discord. We had a Tiger basketball topic going. We had Tiger football. We had the Memphis American soccer going, Grizzlies and NBA draft. So there's just so much, and we are building such a big team that's going to spread out and cover all this stuff. This is the time to join up. So that's bluffcitymedia.co/join. Tigers tonight, get you 10% off. So that's the shameless plug portion of the evening. So next week, I don't know that we've dropped this yet, but we've done the offense, we've done special teams, we've done defense. Next week, we're going to go through the coaching staff. Is Memphis better? Are we worse? Are we as good? Or we'll see. That's kind of the topic we're going with for these 3 weeks, and we will go break down the coaching staff next week. Ward, don't get used to it. Ward says, I'm the new positive Paul. Let's not get carried away around here. Let's not get used to that. This man's got a reputation to uphold.
Just wait till next week.
That's right. 1-11. Did I say 11-1? I meant 1-11. That's what I meant. But all kidding aside. So for the best co-host in all the land, Larry Marley and Brian Moss, this is John Maddox signing off, and we will see everyone next week.